Hi, my name is Dr. Faria Bukhari, and I'm a physician by profession, and I'm also a politician. I run a political party based in Pakistan, and I am also a blogger. And today I'm doing this live video addressing all those people who support the upcoming exhibition in Holland that is being conducted against Islam, against the Muslims of the world. There are about 2 billion Muslims in the world, and they're scattered all over, and there are about 52 Muslim nations in the world. And not all of the Muslim nations follow Sharia law, but most of them have a basic code of conduct that is in alignment with the basic principles of Islam. And whatever you don't understand, it is hard for you to be able to like it. So I think one of the things that's happening over here is that people who have minimal knowledge of Islam are passing judgments about Islam, about the way Muslims behave, without having any idea about what Islam stands for. Islam is a religion of peace. Islam condemns terrorism. Islam condemns a lot of things that you think Islam permits. Islam condemns women oppression. Islam is actually one of the first religions that gave a lot of freedom to women. It gave them the liberty to have a lot of respect in their houses, to have a lot of honor in the houses. So trying to judge a religion without any knowledge of that religion is very dangerous, because what you start is a cascade of hate. It's like a game of dominoes. One person starts a malicious rumor against Islam, against the Muslims, against our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and then that rumor spreads around and is sent from one person to another, and from that second person to the third, without even trying to figure out who Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was, what Islam is, what Muslims are, what their ideology is, what their belief is. Just because you see them wear their hijab does not mean that they're oppressed. Just because some of them prefer to cover their faces even does not mean that they're persecuted. They're doing it by their own choice. Just like the women of different religions other than Islam prefer not to cover their heads or prefer not to cover their faces, prefer to dress in a certain way. Similarly, Muslim women prefer to dress in a certain way too. And this is their own preference. This is their own choice. So trying to profile them as persecuted, as oppressed, just because they like to dress up a certain way, that is prejudice. That is discrimination. It has nothing to do with logic. So for all those people who have doubts about Islam, my invitation to them is to come to our mosques and talk to our imams and try to understand what Islam is, what Muslims stand for. And because when you say that you're doing this exhibition because of the freedom of expression that you support, what you're actually doing is mental harassment and bullying of 2 billion Muslims of the world. And if bullying and mental harassment is a crime in your society, wherever you are, whether you're in US, whether you're in Canada, whether you're in Europe anywhere, whether you're in Australia, doesn't matter. If mental harassment, mental torture, mental trauma, and bullying is a crime, is against your constitution because you're hurting the sentiments of someone, how can you allow someone like Geert Wilders to hurt the sentiments, the feelings of 2 billion Muslims of the world? I just made this video where I was trying to address this issue, and I posted it in Netherlands and in the Holland area where this exhibition is going to be conducted. And if you look at the YouTube page of the blog that I run, And you will see how much hate people are showing in the comments. And these are mostly Dutch, and they're very upset that why am I criticizing Geert? Well, you are criticizing the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the leader of 2 billion Muslims of the world, that is every fourth person on this earth, in the name of freedom of expression. But you're upset with me because I decided to criticize this guy who has no idea what Islam is, who is totally uneducated, who does not want to be educated, who does not even want to go to a mosque and talk to an imam to get some knowledge about the core of Islam. He's just being fed some bigotry from the Zionists, and he's willing to believe their lies against the truth of 2 billion Muslims of the world. So he's willing to believe in these lies so much that he's taken this issue of Islamophobia to a political level, where now he's formed a party in his homeland just to spread hate against Islam and just to spread hate against the 2 billion Muslims of the world, to the point that when the Moroccan Muslim minorities won a case against him, where he was petitioned for discrimination against Muslims, he got so mad at them that he thought the best way to get back to them and to take vengeance from them is by starting this exhibition where cartoons, blasphemous cartoons of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, will be displayed. And the sentiments and feelings, the emotional feelings of 2 billion Muslims of the world will be hurt. So when you see this guy Geert do something in an act of vengeance to get back to 2 billion Muslims, I am surprised that the Dutch and the people of Holland, the people of Netherlands are willing to stand by this guy, to stand by his bigotry, to stand by his hate, and condone it and endorse it. How can you do that? We Muslims do not hate the Dutch. Muslims do not hate the people of Netherlands. So many Muslim countries have so many businesses going on with the companies from Holland. But because of this one guy, Geert, who decides to go for this exhibition, which is blasphemous, which is going to hurt the feelings of so many people, you are going to antagonize, you're willing to antagonize a quarter of the world because of this one guy who is not doing it because of his love for freedom of expression. He's doing it just to be able to satisfy his ego, that he was able to take revenge from the Moroccan Muslims who defeated him in the judicial court. So how can you say that this is his love for freedom of expression that prompted him to do this exhibition? And how can you say this is freedom of expression when the reality is that this is hate speech? I just did a protest, a live protest in US against the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. By the way, in the United States, the Congress just recently passed this Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, according to which if anybody says anything against Israel, even though Israel has been killing and slaughtering little infants and children in its war crimes, even if you condemn that openly, politically, peacefully, non-violently, you will be punished in the name of respect for a religion. When the reality is that Muslims are supposed to respect Moses, peace be upon him. They're supposed to respect Torah because they believe that the same God, Allah, who sent Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, sent Moses, peace be upon him, before the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So if you open the Quran, you will see there's chapters on Moses, peace be upon him. There's his story written. The history is all written. The history of pharaohs is all written in Quran. It's part of the Quran. And all the Muslims are taught about it. So the Muslims are not anti-Semitic. The Muslims are not against the Christ. The Muslims can't even think about humiliating Christ. The Muslims can't even think about humiliating Moses, peace be upon him. But we are the victims. We are the victims of hate speech because we see all these people from all over the world doing these weird cartoons, doing these weird exhibitions, doing these weird hate speeches against our Prophet, peace be upon him. So imagine who is the victim over here. This is not free speech. This is hate speech. And this is persecution of Muslims, not just in Holland, not just in Netherlands, not just in this limited part of the world, but the rest of the world as well. You're talking about a quarter of the population of the world. You're talking about every fourth person on earth you're going to hurt with this exhibition. Is it really worth it? My question to the Dutch people is it really worth it to try to antagonize so many people for the sake of this one guy's ego who's trying to get back to these Moroccan Muslims who won a case against him in this judicial court recently, and as a result of which he was labeled as a criminal? So is it really worth it to go for this exhibition, to try to antagonize the rest of the world, including a quarter of the Muslims of the world, hurting their feelings to the point that they're really hurt? You know, if I degraded your mother, I'm talking to the Dutch again, if I degraded your parents or someone you love the most today, or any Muslim did that, stood in front of you and started to humiliate you, started to say bad things about your parents or whomever you love the most, how would you react? Would you say this is freedom of speech? Would you say that he has the right to do that? No. Nobody has the right to disrespect someone's beloved like this. This is not how civilized societies behave. This actually steps upon the basic conduits of respect for each other and tolerance. So your tolerance is lost as soon as you start disrespecting someone's beloved. So by doing this exhibition in Holland, what you're doing is you're showing an act of intolerance towards your minorities, Muslim minorities who live in Holland, and towards the 2 billion Muslims of the world. It is an act of intolerance that the Dutch will be displaying in the form of this exhibition. And why? Just because there is this Islamophobia suffering guy who has no idea what Islam is about, who has no idea what Muslims are about, who is least educated about Islam, who just lost an election in the prime minister race, and who just lost a case to Moroccan Muslims in the judicial court and he was labeled as a criminal in that case. So now he has nothing more to do than to satisfy his ego by orchestrating this exhibition, where the most beloved person of 2 billion people of the world is planned to be disrespected. How would you react if your mothers were disrespected? How would you react if your parents or whomever you love the most was disrespected in an exhibition like this by someone who never bothered to look into facts, who never bothered to search, to probe, to find out what your mother was about, what your father was about, what your beloved person was about? How would you react? This will not be free speech. This is not freedom of expression. This is hate speech. This is bullying. This is persecution. This is intolerance. And my question to the Dutch people is, do you really want to be the ones who would be the symbols of hate, the symbols of Islamophobia, the symbols of persecution, the symbols of intolerance in the world against Islam, against Muslims, against 2 billion Muslims, not to mention your own Muslim minorities? Do you really want to be part of this? That is my question to you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.